Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Sky from Escape the City, and I am here today to talk to two very impressive women who are working in trying to tackle climate change with their careers. And we're here to talk about how they got into the sector and to give a bit of insight as to how, their winding journeys and how they ended up where they are now, and to share a bit more about what they're working on and some of the advice that they might have for other people who are looking to do the same. So I will let them introduce themselves. Firstly, we'll start with Rosa. Would you mind giving a bit of background of what you were doing and how you got to where you are now and what you're up to at the moment?
Sure, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. So I've been in energy and climate change and sustainability for 12 years, and I often think when people ask about your kind of career ladder or what have you gone through, I think of my career as more like a jungle gym where it goes like in all different directions, and the one unifying theme is that it's always been in energy and climate change. So I started off as a lawyer, so I am a solicitor by professional background, and my first 5 years I was working in the city. I was at Clifford Chance and at Sherman and Sterling, and I was doing international energy project finance, and I found the deals, there were kind of huge deals, sort of, wind farms in South Africa and solar panels on rooftops in the UK to big gas pipelines. I found all of those things really exciting. Like, I loved the deals and I loved understanding about energy. But my own job, I found quite dull and quite reactive and sort of just going through like lots of contracts with not much agency to change. And so I was looking for a way out, and actually, as it happens, I went on Escape the City website. So my way out actually came through Escape the City, and the job I got from Escape the City was actually in Nigeria. So it was a program manager job, managing £8 million budget and 80 consultants who advising on power sector reform program out in Nigeria. And, it was my first management job, and I was completely thrilled. And it's, kind of think, how do you end up managing 80 people if you've never managed anyone before? And I think the answer to that is if you're willing to move out to Nigeria, then, that's sort of maybe a tip for people being flexible about location. And it was really, really fascinating, the kind of place where, you saw power cuts all the time. I would walk around with a torch in my handbag because you never knew when the lights would go out, which was good preparation, because when I came back to the UK, I joined the government working on energy and climate change policy. And I did all manner of jobs, including energy security strategy for the UK, which was kind of looking after the UK, making sure lights don't go out, and analysis of margins. And I worked on different programs as well. I worked on a Green Deal, which was a home insulation program, giving grants to people to make their homes more energy efficient, and lots of other jobs. And my last job in government, actually, I was Deputy Director for Clean Growth and Carbon Budgets, which is the team that did net zero targets. So actually, I started off that advice to ministers when we first were thinking about, is this possible? And so I'm part of that net zero target that we've now got. And that sort of government was really exciting. You really felt like you have power to make the change, and somewhere like climate change, that's really important. And then when I left government, I went back to private sector, and I worked for energy suppliers. So I went for SSC, which is one of the big, largest energy companies in the UK. And I worked as a lobbyist, sort of going back lobbying my old colleagues in government on energy and climate change, and doing lots of other interesting things. And then so after being in kind of a private sector, I've then been doing lots of campaigns and my own kind of projects and startups. And at the moment, I'm part of a venture builder program in Cambridge called Carbon 13, which is a program for people who want to do ambitious, scalable businesses to tackle climate change. And the business I've set up is called Black Block Energy. And we do carbon optimization software for appliances. So we're trying to appliances electricity consumption from high carbon periods to low carbon periods. So when it's more renewables and less kind of gas plant running on the system, and that has huge potential. It can the emissions from an appliance by 25%, and we're at the moment looking at how you would scale that up globally, and trying to think of what we need in kind of that team and that business to make that happen. So yeah, that's sort of my potted history of different jobs from anything from tiny startup to like the government to the world's largest law firm, and everything and anything in between. So yeah, that's me, Sky.
Wow. Wow, it's amazing. What a journey. What a journey. Also, obviously, it makes me feel very happy that you found your first escape through Escape. That's amazing. I didn't know that. So that makes me feel really happy to hear. And obviously you've done lots of really interesting things since then. So I look forward to hearing more when we get into questions. Marcela, would you be happy to share a bit more about your background and how you got to where you are now?
Sure, thank you, Sky, and it's great to be here, and it's fantastic to hear Rosa's journey, because I've known Rosa for a couple of months now, because we are in the same program together, but I've never heard to that depth of variety, which is really exciting, and I guess it mimics a little bit some of what I've gone through. So I guess my career in food started 12 years ago, but before that I was in education. So I'm a qualified teacher actually, and so I worked in schools, but then I managed a program, a Sure Start program. So it's about community development and reaching people. And then I worked for an NGO. And when I was working for this NGO in educational capacity, I realized that actually the thing I enjoyed the most was about the food side of things, and it was a very global thing. So even getting stuck in and making the food, and I decided to make that leap and start my own food business from my own kitchen. So I started creating some salsas because I didn't know anything about pasteurization and anything like that. So I partnered with a university. And so eventually we ended up winning some awards for innovation and the ways that we kind of launched these products. And I was serving Harrods and Selfridges from my kitchen table. So I'd had a large lorry park outside my house to come and collect the stock. and then eventually I graduated to managing my own manufacturing site and then outsourcing. So all these things about entrepreneurship, of the really hard things, of the emotional ups and downs. I mean, there have been genuine pinch, is this true kind of happening moments, and having been awarded an award from the president of Mexico, in London one day, and then the next day I'm in my own factory mopping the floor. This is one of those things, the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, and is keeping that sort of emotional resilience, because it's really, really demanding to have your own business. So it was at the time that I was scaling out and having much more distribution nationally and some international distribution as well. Came into some distribution problems. Well, supply. My suppliers decided to sell their business somewhere. So I ended up with no product, and then looking for other suppliers and so on. And eventually I decided to exit my own business. I exited, and at that time I actually also looked at Escape City at that point, thinking that gives me like a beacon of hope that they could be something different that's quite quirky, quite interesting, and so on. I certainly haven't been paid by Escape to say this. So it was lovely to see a very different proposition for job possibilities. But it's managing, that kind of in your mindset, that transition of, right, okay, I've managed my own business, I have all this background, but how can I now embrace change and do something different? So I ended up getting a job with Unilever, because the thread throughout, I guess very much like Rosa, her thread is about energy and sustainability. Mine has been about food and sustainable food supply chain. So I wanted to see how those companies, the multinationals, were doing sustainability. So I joined a commercial role in Unilever, but also in the sustainability team. So, understanding at that time how the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan was being rolled out, encompassing all the sustainable development goals, and fascinating how that communication throughout 100,000 people happened and how coherent it all was. And I learned a lot from those priorities. And then I moved to corn at that time when the tide was turning for what now is a really big moment for veganism and vegetarianism, but at the time it wasn't as big. So it was very exciting to be inside there for how those changes were being managed and that perception. And that idea of corn had been a bit of a sleepy brand at some point in the past, which was a bit French or a bit small, and passed hands from one VC to another and so on. And now it's like, how can we embrace that position of leadership? So again, seeing that from the inside was really, really interesting. So then I wanted to explore how business manages farmer ownership. So I joined Divine Chocolate to see from the inside how a brand could be partly owned by its growers, because Divine, 20% of their shareholding is by their Ghanaian growers, a cooperative called Cocoa. And so I wanted to see how that happened from the inside, warts and all. And because now, as I am building my own business, I want to incorporate that model. So my business is about capturing carbon through sustainable agriculture, so agroforestry, and developing highly nutritious, regenerable ingredients and encompassing a different way of growing food. But I want the growers to also have shares in the business. So it's, I have been lucky that I struck a really good friendship with the then CEO, who has been able to explain the kind of things that have worked well, or some of the challenges and so on. So something that I'd say is, standing on the shoulders of giants is always a really, really good way to start. That's a bit about me.
Amazing. Another winding, fascinating journey, working in lots of different really interesting organizations, and another big career change from teaching to food to the startup world, and then obviously we've got from law to all kinds of things. There's two what I would say are classic, very traditional career paths up front, but then moving into something that's very alternative, and also in a world that's changed so much in the last, I don't know, 15 years or something. This emphasis more on obviously climate and sustainability, and really making the most of the opportunities that have come forth. So really, really, really interesting. So I'd like to dive in a bit more, if that's all right with both of you. And I guess the first thing that I'll ask you, Rosa, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about, obviously it's a big decision to leave a profession that you have, and for both of you have had this experience, a profession that you've trained in, that you've got a specialty in, something that other people, a lot of people aspire to go into law and to be a lawyer, and there's a lot of prestige and yeah, it's a successful career, right? That's what you would classify as being a successful career. And I'm curious, how was that for you? What made you decide to do something else, and what was that transition like from leaving law and doing something obviously very different?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I still remember how in some ways it was a bit like identity crisis, because I studied law forever, and I've got a master's in law as well, and I the kind of the straight A's, always like, I want to be a lawyer, I'm really going to go for law, I'm going to study law, then I'm going to qualify, and then that's what you've been telling yourself for like the last 12 years, and then suddenly you're no longer a lawyer, and it's kind of like, who am I now? You can't kind of answer with one word. And yeah, I remember that was quite hard, that aspect of the change. But then on the other hand, it's sort of, I've always had this view that there's no point in kind of hitting your head against the wall if you are in the wrong place. The kind of that saying about it's better to be at the bottom of the right ladder than halfway up the wrong ladder. And thinking about all of us, now, if we're lucky enough to live, like the life expectancy, kind of would suggest we'll all have so many different careers, that it's quite normal that you would be a lawyer first and then you become something else. And so, yeah, I think for me it was that I could see kind of watching the partners. There were lots of people who'd been in Clifford Chance in the same firm for like 20 years and who'd gone from the, into as a graduate and then stay on and then, obviously earning millions of pounds. And I was looking at them and just thinking, I don't want my life to be the same, just a variation of what I do now in 20 years time, in the same turning around the same kind of facility agreement, for becoming more and more specialized in this one brand of finance, which allows, to me to sell my chargeable hours at a higher rate. And so I didn't buy into that model because it wasn't me, because I'm the kind of person who, if you ask me, what do I want to do? I want to change the world, and just being in a law firm didn't allow me to change the world. Although I did contribute to amazing projects that did change the world, I didn't feel like I was leading them or initiating them. And I suppose that's maybe when you listen to mine and Marcela's backgrounds, it's that drive to kind of want to initiate things and be the leader rather than the person who's told to do something. And so I think, yeah, looking at that kind of the positive aspect and then trying to get over the negative of like, who am I, what am I doing here? I'm no longer a lawyer. So yeah, that would be me.
Yeah, really interesting. I think that I mean, all of those points really resonate, but that the sort of the identity thing that you mentioned at the beginning is really, that's something that I see a lot in people who want to change their career. They really feel, like I'm a lawyer, and if I'm not a lawyer, what am I? And how do you actually figure that out? So I don't know if you could speak a bit to, obviously you had this drive you wanted to go and do something that was your own, and change the world. Was there how did you figure that out? Or when you took that first step to, apply for the job through Escape and go and do something that was obviously very different, how did that, what was that? Was there like a moment, or you just thought, what, I don't need to know all the answers, I'm just gonna try something and see how it goes? What was that like for you?
Yeah, good question, because in some ways it's sort of dictated by also the opportunities that are open for you. So part of the difficulty I had, and I imagine a lot of other people have, is that if your whole CV says you're a lawyer, and you now go to an interview saying, I don't want to be a lawyer, I want to do whatever you guys are doing, business development or arts or music or whatever, everyone's kind of like, but nothing in your CV says that, everything about you says one thing, and now you want to pivot to something else. And in some ways that kind of I found it really hard. I was applying for lots of jobs, and some way that explains how I ended up in Nigeria, because that was an interesting job that I could get, which had the right aspects. I could be part of reforming something, I could lead a team, I could run a budget, all of the things I'd never done before. But that was the requirement was to change countries. Yeah, in some ways the answer wasn't kind of like just what would I like to do, is also what would the market have me do. And so there's something in there. But then I would say it's trial and error, because it wasn't it was only maybe when I got into government, in working for the government in the UK, that I really started loving kind of the energy system and understanding how it all links together, and how, decarbonisation and how different like policy, regulation, business work together to kind of change. And it's only that's kind of really given me, like, I feel like I'm alive when I'm in that world. And it doesn't really matter so much if it's been government or private sector or now a startup, as long as I feel like I'm now in my element when I'm trying to kind of help the energy system decarbonize, and I can approach that from different angles, and it kind of makes me feel like I've got some purpose.
Amazing. It's so interesting. As you say, I think from the outside, when you hear somebody like either of you speaking about your journey, it always sounds so, like it was so clear to you at the time. It's always so much easier to connect the dots looking backwards and saying, oh yeah, and I did this and this, and this is how they all really naturally fed onto each other. But in the moment, just hearing, you were applying for lots of things, you weren't really sure. It's kind of I think so many people find themselves in that position, and they compare their behind the scenes with everybody else's, like, highlight reel of their life and their career. So it's just nice to hear that you've been in a similar position, and that kind of trying things out and seeing what sticks and what lands, and and those things kind of emerge. Your kind of passion in things emerges by experiment, through kind of the experimentation side. And I guess that also speaks to your journey as well, Marcela, the, you know, obviously going from, you know, kind of working in teaching and in the education sector, and then going into a more entrepreneurial lifestyle where you said, you know, you're making your products at your kitchen table. What was that transition like, and how did you, what was that transition from, you know, kind of, I guess, a traditional path to doing something on your own, and something that obviously that was very different? What was that like for you?
Oh, it was hard and exhilarating and scary, really. So one thing that I think research shows that women are much more prone than men is that horrible imposter syndrome, right? You know, it's like, who are you to do this? Like, you have no qualifications, you're not good, you're gonna fail, you're so stupid to even consider it. And it's kind of managing that voice and thinking, actually, I would never ever talk to my best friend or even someone I don't like. I wouldn't talk to them like that. Why am I talking to myself like that, right? I don't know if that happens to you, but I certainly had to a lot of fallings out with that voice, with that voice of, you know, who are you to do this and to try that out. And I think, you know, to be really honest, meditation helped me loads with that. I discovered meditation through, I knew somebody who was a change specialist. So she worked with corporates to help them going through deep changes, you know, large corporates and small corporates and whatever. And then she got divorced and she applied her own system to herself. And then she devised like a step. So I asked her to help me a little bit with helping with my own transition. You know, sometimes one can, you know, we can manage our own things and so on, but sometimes you need a little bit of help. And hiring a coach to help me through that transition was actually really helpful. And one of the things that she included, some meditation and some kind of affirmations and that kind of thing. And, you know, some people might think it's really woo-woo, but it really helps me on a daily basis for sure. And I know that I'm not alone. So I think that, you know, there's again a lot of evidence to say that can be really, really helpful. And I do that religiously at least once a day. And so that's something on a practical level that's helped me. But also, you know, you have to embrace learning new things. You know, I decided to go back to school. I did a master's on sustainability more recently, but that's also helped me to think, you know, how can I order my thoughts in a particular way, or, you know, specialize a little bit more, give that opportunity to have a deep dive and research an area of interest with a bit, you know, more method in a more methodological way. So that's really helped me. The course that I have been doing is run by the CISL Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership. And that's also really helped me. But I mean, I'm not saying that everybody needs to go back to school at all. I mean, most people don't, but it has really helped me to hang those thoughts together and to articulate the big dream that I have, and to kind of articulate it in a way that I can see that it can be tangible.
Amazing. I find, that, you know, you're saying, oh, it feels a bit woo-woo, some of this stuff, but it's about whatever's the thing that works the best for you. I think that's, you know, we all try. I mean, I find it really helpful just having the, you know, we live in such a noisy world, just having the space to have like clear thoughts and, you know, some people say, oh, well, you don't have to go and do a degree, and maybe people don't, but for some people it's really helpful, and for some people it's not as helpful. So listening to what your needs are, and really following those, feels like it's a really important part of that process too.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. And I think it's very much about, I completely agree with you about everyone's needs are different, and it's like being in tune with what works for our own selves, rather than, you know, it might not work for your friend or whatever. But, you know, I found that, you know, having a bit more formal training alongside what I was doing was something helpful. And nowadays there's so many resources out there with so many amazing free courses and so on that can really help articulate your thoughts. But I guess it's that inner knowing, like, following that inner voice saying, something else is possible. There's other things out there that are possible. There's no need to feel trapped. There are possibilities out there.
It's such an important message, because I think sometimes that doesn't get through to every, it's hard, can be hard for people to listen to that voice. I guess for both of you, I'm curious about, at the moment you're both working on projects to reduce, obviously to tackle climate change, and your own projects and your own businesses. And I'm curious for both of you, maybe we'll start with Rosa and then Marcela, you can answer, but could you tell us a little bit about when was the first time when you, or like the first win, because lots of us have ideas, things that we want to see come to, we've got business ideas, we've got lots of ideas that we want to make happen. But I'm curious about what was the first win or the small thing that made you think that you were onto something, that you were going to, go and do a little bit more or put a little bit more time into it. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so we've spent a lot of time talking to potential customers and potential stakeholders. And it's really that feedback that you get from other people who are kind of somehow connected to the idea. And, it's just recognizing when lots of people kind of get what you're trying to do, see that there's potential for it, and there aren't sort of obvious kind of showstoppers coming up, and it's maybe that quiet voice where you keep kind of talk, the more you keep like digging in, you kind of feel like, okay, there might be something in here. But actually, like with any startups, you don't really know until a few years down the line what's the real potential. There's so many good ideas that sound good for the first year or two, but then by the time you try and really like grow them, then you realize whether it's going to work. So you never know. But yeah, I would say that just having lots of conversations with people and feeling like it's kind of resonating. How about you, Marcela?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Rose. Actually, is there are obviously, if one approaches people with an idea, most people won't say, do you know what, I think this is a rubbish idea. People won't necessarily say that, but there is a different level when people start to get involved. Oh, there's something that I could help with. Let me introduce you to. And so it's not just that kind of like skin deep level of polite agreement, but saying, I love your idea. Let me introduce you to my black book of mentors, or let me introduce you to my client, my customer, my buyer, etc. When you start thinking, if this person is prepared to in a way risk really, their community or their their network to offer it to you, then you think there must be something else a little bit, there to prove that proves to me that there is something out there, and that's a really nice feeling. But that's very early on, right? Also, something like being accepted to a program like this is really, it gives some confidence that you're up to something interesting. I was actually also accepted to work with Cambridge Social Ventures. So again, those kind of early signs of support, and it's about listening to others, right? But at the end of the day, you have to follow your own path as well.
Amazing. I think, both of those certainly really resonate with me and with Escape. On our startup program that we've run in the past, it's always trying to encourage people to talk about their idea early on, but less about this is my idea and more about trying to get insights and trying to validate the problems and talk to your potential customers. And I really love that idea of, it's not just somebody saying it's a good idea, but it's somebody who's willing to put their neck out there to support you, is a really great way of, it's like genuine, there's like a genuine validation or interest there, which is a really nice, I like that as like a little test. Are people trying to introduce you to people to help you, and that's like a really nice little experiment. I'm curious.
And I think
So
paying it forward is really important as well. Sorry, but if there's something that I could offer value to my fellow entrepreneurs, I'd love to also help, because we are in it together.
Yeah, and I think that is probably one of the best and nicest things I think about the kind of the entrepreneurial sector is everybody wants to help each other to avoid mistakes that we've all made, when you're starting something, and it's a very generous community. I find, people, there's a lot of empathy, people can really empathize. So I think that's, yes, maybe less scary than some people think of, like, oh, I've got to go and do it on my own and it'll be hard to get help. Actually, people are quite willing to support each other and help each other, and presumably that's also a big part of being a part of a program. So you've both spoken about, you're both part of the Carbon 13 program, and I'm curious, Rosa, maybe I'll ask you to just share, would you be able to share a bit more about it and how it works and kind of the support that you get, and yeah, for anybody who might be interested?
Yeah, sure. So, I think some people who are listening to this might definitely be interested, because it's a program where people enter as individuals, and so it's for experienced people who want to start a business that has potential to save 10 million tons of carbon, which is massive. And so the concept is that people enter individually, and then they try and find a teammate first. So there's that kind of first couple of months is that weird sort of Love Island meet apprentice style, people are trying to kind of talk to each other to find out whether you're interested to work on energy or food or agriculture or transport, and what your skills are, that the people who've got technical backgrounds, like engineers and PhDs and software developers, and then people with commercial backgrounds, your kind of MBAs and bankers and management consultants, and then industry people from various sectors, and sort of that, and you're trying to find people who are interested in the same space and who are complementary by their skills, and who you also like and want to spend the next 5 years working on a business. And so there's a lot in the first phase, and then the teams that kind of come out of it, if you've kind of found teammates, you then go on to the next phase of the program, which is the idea development and validation, which is having customer conversations, working on kind of prototype, doing market research, and then you go on to do an investment committee pitch for some initial funding, and then you go and do a lot more development with the initial funding to then raise further funds. So it's an ongoing process, and they do run, I think applications are now open for a cohort that starts in September, and then they will be doing another one, I think, starting in May. So it's like an ongoing programming, both in Cambridge and in virtually. So you go to Cambridge some days a week, and sometimes you're just with COVID obviously at the moment. So I think for anyone who's thinking about doing a business in kind of tackling climate change, and if you haven't got co-founders, it's a really good place to go to find co-founders.
And I'd add to that, Rosa, that there is Tinder for Business and Love Island, but also Hunger Games towards the end.
But yeah, hopefully it doesn't get too Hunger Games at the end, does it?
It's great fun, and yeah, the applications are open right now. It's carbon and then the word 13, carbon13.com, I think. So amazing. Yeah.
And I guess for both of you, but Marcela, you've obviously you've run your own business before, and obviously you exited that business, and you've gone and you've done your masters, and you have spent time, obviously doing a lot of work in the space. I'm curious what drove you, who's, you've already been through this process before, to join. Was it the community? Was there something that really pulled you to doing that as part of a group rather than on your own?
Yeah, absolutely, Sky. Yeah, I think that being an entrepreneur on your own as sole founder is a really lonely job, actually. And I really want to share that, hoping that I would find a co-founder that I could, complement skills and, share really. And so, yes, I have a co-founder now, and that's a really important reason. But the whole structure and the wider community is really, really important, because at the end of the day, we are creating something out of nowhere, from nothing. And I think to be able to really manifest that, you have to have, sort of your community there to have your back as well. So that's a really important part.
Nice. Really
How about
nice.
you, Rosa?
Yeah, I think having people, particularly this year with coming out of lockdown and sort of just seeing people has been amazing, and it's quite fun. There's the aspect of kind of like almost like going back to university when you go to Cambridge and you end up like having a house party and going punting, and so there's that sort of extra on top of it to like lighten the load of kind of hard work. So yeah, definitely loads of really interesting people from very interesting backgrounds, and everyone's done amazing things, either they run their businesses or been in different interesting careers or academia, or there's loads of people who've got like, oh, I've got 20 patents in my name, and it's like, wow, it's amazing. So yeah, it's really just a good place to meet people.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really nice. It's that sense of camaraderie really comes through.
And so for people who are looking to, because obviously the climate, climate sector, tackling climate change, this is a burgeoning sector of where we need more people working, obviously, on this, and more people are interested in trying to put their skills and talents to doing something that's, that matters and that really matters in the world. And I'm curious, both of your perspectives are of if somebody is out there watching this and they want to get into the sector and they've been doing something else, what opportunities do you see in this sector for people who want to get into it? Or is there a recommended route that you would take, or problems that you think particularly people should focus on? Yeah. Marcela, you happy to start?
Sure. Yeah. So I think there are lots of ways I think that one can proactively, without the title sustainability manager or whatever, you can proactively go and become a change agent within your organization. What's happening out there in the news, and bring a little bit of that, or create allies inside your organization and start to talk, even really simple things. It can start with something as simple as a beach clean, but that then can grow into something bigger, right? Within some organizations that may not have a sustainability team, there could be something proactive that one can become a self-starter and create a bit of a buzz around that, and even make a team out of that from volunteers. I mean, there are other places that have sustainability champions in different sections and organize different activities. I would very much encourage people to perhaps become familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, and maybe frame some of those activities around that. If you're interested in nature, there's the UN has just launched this amazing thing called Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. So there are lots of activities that, okay, the UN global things, but you can do like a bit of tree planting in your own site, in your own place of work, or things like that can happen. So from tiny little small activities, with time they can create a bit of excitement and buzz, and that's something that can go in your CV. And before you know it, you kind of come out and met people that perhaps you wouldn't have met before, and that could be a good positive way to snowball things. And or perhaps reach out to others, some work that you might admire in another company. I mean, I find that LinkedIn is a really, really powerful tool. If you kind of offer someone an invitation to connect with a good reason, saying, I'm really interested in the work you're doing and I've seen this or that. I mean, people like to help generally, and I think that reaching out is a really powerful tool as well.
Amazing. Yeah, great. Yeah, really helpful advice. Thank you so much for sharing. Rosa, the same question to you. What opportunities do you see, and how would you suggest people create their own space in the sector?
Yeah, so echoing what Marcela just said about reaching out to people, I think definitely if you know, if you see something that kind of makes you think, oh, I'd like to be part of that, or I'd like to learn more about it. And even, you know, I could just plug here, if there was anyone listening who liked the sound of what my startup is doing on energy and kind of carbon reduction from electricity use, just reach out. I don't know if Escape the City share like contact details or things, but, you know, I'd be happy, because obviously, say startups is a good place to start. In some ways, they're all kind of in need of growing, and they might need you know, future staff or co-founders or interns or whatever, different levels. So definitely reaching out to people like myself or anyone else in the right kind of sector. But then more broadly, I think people need to think about sustainability as something that exists in every company and in every job. And so when we think about net zero, to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions requires every sector of the economy to decarbonize. So frankly, every job will or should be about sustainability. And so you do have the potential to just look at it like, oh, if I work in a transport company, what role could I do to kind of mean that we move from, you know, fossil fuel based transport to electrified or hydrogen based transport? Or how can I make people consume energy less, or move consumption, or reduce plastic use, or you know, plant more trees or whatever? And so every company now needs to think about it more and more. So therefore, I think there's so much potential to create your own. Even, yeah, if you look around, whatever job you're in, there must be so much potential, given that global emissions are still going like this, where we need to kind of turn them down. So yeah, there's so much work to do. There's not going to be shortage in any one of our lifetimes to do like sustainability related work. That's the good news if you're interested in this space.
Amazing. I like the idea of trying to, starting where you are and thinking about what, you know, the kind of impact that you can have, and how things are going to change, you know, very quickly, and all of the things that do need to change. Every industry, as you say, has to decarbonize in order for it to really work for all of us. I'm conscious of time, but I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, if that's okay. I think obviously at Escape we try to encourage people to find, you know, to do work that makes them feel alive, to do work that really matters to them and the world. Because when people are, you know, we want people who are really talented to be working on big problems in the world. And there's often a challenge, you know, of there's a balancing act of all the things, you know, pay and prestige and skills and purpose and all of these things. You're constantly trying to get the right balancing act. And I guess from both of you have worked in very purposeful spaces, maybe sometimes, you know, roles that felt more purposeful, roles that felt slightly less purposeful. Obviously working on climate change, which is such a big problem in the world, presumably you have a sense of that, the impact that you are having or that you could have. And I'm curious for both of you, I will start with you, Marcela. How does the impact that you have in your career and your professional life add value to your life personally? Does it add value, and how does it?
Wow, that's a great question. I have never been able to separate my own personal self from my work self. So, you know, there's this saying, you know, bring your whole self to work. Well, I have never been able not to do that. So I guess, you know, I see it as an integral part. And, you know, you spend so many hours of the week working that you might as well make it some joyous work. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but something that fulfills you deeply, that you're very aligned to. So I think, you know, for me, you know, knowing that there is a potential to have a contribution to decarbonize and to improve. Also, I mean, ours is also about social and impact and biodiversity recovery, and those things are really incredibly important to me, you know, for future generations, etc. So we're living in a really pivotal time whereby, you know, we know that if we act now, we can make a huge difference for the future. And I definitely every day think I want to be part of that, you know.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. I very much agree with you on the bringing your home. I've never been somebody who could separate work Sky and normal Sky. So I'm I'm with you, and yeah, it's just nice to hear how that makes you feel generally, when you're doing something that is intrinsically inherently valuable to you and really important to you, how that has an impact on your whole, how you feel in your life. Rosa, the same question to you.
Yeah, actually, my angle is with friends. So I'm the kind of person who makes friends by doing stuff together with people, and then like having to kind of get through difficult things. And so all my friends, or my closest friends, are either from school or university or work, and it's that kind of bonding experience when you're in a group of people who, like, you've got something in common. You've presumably all chosen a certain career or a company because you had something in common, and then you worked on difficult things. And particularly, I suppose, government's quite good for that, because like there's no end of problem that come up in working with kind of ministers and in a politically environment. So yeah, so for me, it's really, I've met loads of really amazing people who've shared the purpose or the kind of passion. And yeah, so I think, yeah, it's important to be able to kind of have fun and enjoy what you're doing, and those relationships that come with it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. Yeah, I mean, I really resonate with that. The kind of, how you get away from the networking thing. People say, a lot of people really fear networking, for example, because it feels awkward or it feels forced. But that if you are surrounding yourself with people who care about the same things that you do, and you're doing things, whether it's volunteering or taking part in a course or whatever, that actually it doesn't have to feel like networking. It's kind of the art of making friends in a really authentic way, because you all care about the same sorts of things, and what kind of relationships that builds in your life as well, beyond just purely functional working relationships, is a really nice reminder. I think I have to remind myself. Well, I'll just ask you each one final question, even though I have about 500 that I would like to ask you. And I guess the last thing would be, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is really important to share? So if people are, they're wanting to get into the space, they're thinking about changing their career, maybe feeling stuck or not sure where to start, or need some encouragement. I'm just curious if there's anything that we've not talked about that we're leaving out that you want to make sure that you address before we wrap things. So anybody who feels excited about it.
I can go first. Yeah, so I wanted to echo what you said earlier, Sky, about when you tell the story to someone about your career choices, how it all sounds so perfectly organized, and of course it all made sense, all these different jobs that you did, but that's hindsight. And actually every single kind of career move, job change, business, whatever I've ever done, has involved huge amount of agonizing about whether I'm making the right choice. And that's not different at the moment, where I'm in the middle of a startup and thinking like, I really love this is what I want to do. On the other hand, I don't know, I have no idea if this thing has any legs, and if I'm just wasting my time, if I'm going to embarrass myself. On the other hand, it could like revolutionize something that we're doing, and it could be amazing, and we could scale a new technology. And so you're sitting there with these two thoughts all the time, and no matter what kind of what choice you make. And I'm sure maybe there are very few people who are like so kind of emotionally stable that they just go from one thing to another and everything always goes smoothly, but that's definitely not me. And so I would just say to everyone, when you like look at people's CVs or listen to their career stories, it's very, very rare that anyone would kind of have it very easily and it's plain sailing. And also, if it is really easy, then you quite often, you might not be growing if you're being in the same job for 20 years in the same company, and there's just a linear kind of trajectory. So yeah, maybe the messier, the more learning experiences you can get. So yeah.
Nice,
I love that.
Yeah,
Marcela.
there's obviously considerable risk sometimes to, people think, oh, am I going to make a fool of myself, or all that kind of thing. So I think that's a very real thought, that is a real showstopper sometimes. But sometimes, as Rosa says, we just need to move from that comfort zone and take that leap of faith. There's a really heartwarming book that I read a few years ago by Sophie Kinsella called Remember Me. That I think that tackles this kind of imposter syndrome again that I talked about before, and in a heartwarming way. I think just surrounding yourself with positive literature to help you, or friends, or perhaps a mentor, that can be also helpful. And or escape the city people, look at those jobs and allow yourself to dream a bit, allow yourself to embrace other possibilities.
Amazing. Love that. Really love that. Well, we're going to finish on time, which is amazing. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you to both of you for taking an hour out of your day and sharing your stories and sharing your advice. And I personally find you both, both of your journeys so inspiring, and I have no doubt that it will be the same for people who are watching this and people who watch this later. So just huge thank you for being honest and open and so willing to share your advice and your stories with us. If people would like to get in touch or keep in touch with you, where can they find you? How can they keep updated with your projects?
A good question. Well, I'm available on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is always a good way to do that. We don't have a website yet, so I can't direct, to a particular website. But LinkedIn is a good way. It's just Marcela, just one L, Marcela Flores. Do reach out, and Amazing. I don't know, through Escape the City, whether that there's a way to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll share, if you're happy for me to. I'll share your profile. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Rosa?
Yeah, same here. I think LinkedIn is the easiest. So Rosa Stewart, and do share. And if anyone would like to kind of learn more, just message me on LinkedIn. That would be great.
Amazing. Well, I will share both of your LinkedIn profiles in the follow-up, so people can get in touch and keep up to date with your projects. And I'm sure people will be getting in touch and asking your thoughts and for feedback on stuff. But just another huge thank you to both of you, and please let us know how things progress with both of your businesses, and maybe in, I don't know, we'll see, 6 months time, a year's time, we can do it again and see where you are and how things are going. Would be
exciting.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. But I'll just wrap up and say thank you so much again for joining, and thanks to everybody for watching, and look forward to seeing how this inspires the next group of people to go and do something different. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Sky.
Thank you, Sky.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.